It's Saturday. It's Saturday, everybody, and we are. It is that day, uh, the one we've been waiting for all week, and I don't know how this is going to go. Okay, I'm putting my disclaimer out there now. I do not know how this is going to go. I can hope that it goes really, really smoothly, um, but I don't know. I am dealing with a topic that most people shy away from, or they don't want to tackle because, well, you're a guy, you shouldn't have a say. So. I'm gonna lay down some things so people understand a couple of things. So Keisha's here. Let's go. This is how it's gonna go, okay, for everyone in the audience. If I see a question that you want to ask, I'll put it up. I'll be monitoring that. Each of the people that are going to be on the screen will have a time to give their grievances or their viewpoints about things, and then without interruption, of course, from anyone. And at the end of it, um, we'll go through and see if any of their issues are one um, have any grounds to them or merit as a male, because they'll be talking about males, and whether or not it's a fixable thing on the male's end or the female's end, and hopefully get some sort of a amicable balance going here. So we're going to bring everybody up one F by one F. So oh, good. Everyone's spread out perfectly. So welcome everyone to the panel. I think there should be another
Hello.
couple three that should be
Hello.
showing.
What's
So hope
going on?
good. Hopefully they'll pop in here soon enough. I sent one a text message, and hopefully she'll be here. If not, not. So there should be three others showing up. Should possibly four. So here's the format. Um, Everybody from Amber to Karma to Keisha to Erica. That's how it's gonna go. Or sorry. And we're gonna have you give your viewpoints about the male species, as it were.
I
Um,
never do.
and I mean on a social side, however you have issues with them, or even if that's from a personal experience or from what you've seen, give it. It's an open format. I'm not telling you what not to say. Speak your mind, speak your heart. You're here to vent. Okay, this is your place to say exactly how you feel with no judgment. Um, Contrary to popular belief, Keisha, I am
Yeah.
not here to judge your viewpoint. I'm simply here to clarify some things that you may see as a problem that may or may not be a problem. Not saying I'll disagree, and I'm not saying
Okay.
I'll agree. I'm just
Okay.
listening to your viewpoint, and then from that point on, I'm going to be giving the male perspective on those problems. And you don't have to like it either. The same way I don't have to agree with you. You may not agree with my viewpoint about it, but we all want to at least be able to hear each other out without a aggression type feeling in in the room. That sound like it can be possible?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
Sure. Good morning, ladies.
There's always gotta be one. Always gotta be one. And it's gonna be Keisha. Everyone is gonna be Keisha today. Okay? It's gonna be
Look,
Keisha.
first of all, let me just say good morning to the ladies. Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good
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 morning.
morning.
Okay. Go
Okay.
ahead, Marlon.
It's
What
gonna
you
be
want
it's
to
gonna be
say?
Keisha. It's gonna
What? What am
she's
I
gonna
gonna do?
she's gonna be the tester. Okay? That litmus test. Litmus test. That's
Okay.
you, Keisha.
Okay.
So I'm going to be muting everybody else so you can't, chime in. And Amber, when you're done, just let us know, and we'll move right away over to Karma, and then down to Keisha and Erica. Unless someone pops in before, Erica's gonna go last. Okay. All right. So Amber, you're up.
All right. So, man, I wasn't expecting to go first. But, one thing that I personally noticed with men that drives me absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be like, they'll come up and they'll hit on me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be like, well, I'm married. I'm happy. I'm taken. Like, leave me alone type. And they act like that's an invite to some game that I don't want to play.
Okay.
Like, I don't understand why men think that a married woman is an invite. It's not. That's like my personally my biggest thing.
Okay. So the simple way to put it that men who can't take a hint. They cannot take hints. And even blatant signs, flashing stop signs, they can't. Okay. All right. Karma, you're up. She's muted herself though. I can't unmute you if you mute yourself. You gotta unmute you.
Me.
There you go. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
You can. Well, I would say my biggest complaint, like I was having a debate last night, is I hear men screaming for traditional marriage. They want, the old style gender-based roles, yet women are working equally as much. The complaints of women having to prompt their men, boyfriends, husbands, to help out within the household, and men's viewing these tasks as below them. They want women subservient, but still earning a paycheck. And I just can't fathom this.
Okay. Got it. So they want traditional marriage without being traditional husbands, or they think they have a weird way of looking at traditional husbands too.
Correct. They're not
Okay.
viewing it, if they're viewing it in the eyes of God, they're not seeing the partner as an extension of themselves. It's more of a subservience.
Gotcha. Okay. Is that your biggest one, or do you have a secondary one as well?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the men again, I guess, wanting more traditional relationships, but not stepping up to the bat and being the traditional men that they're seeking.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. I have that written down. Keisha, you're up.
You're writing it down?
I'm writing down notes as I go. I
Okay.
want to make sure I have everything because I know I'm old. I don't remember stuff like I used to.
You're not that old, but okay.
I have an
I
old brain because it's damaged. It literally is damaged. I
Okay.
have to write it down.
Okay. Um, I I think if I had to say my biggest complaint is that men are no longer running their households.
Okay.
So they don't have their own life in order. Therefore, how can they possibly step into the role as a man of a household?
Okay.
And they lack communication.
Okay. What do you consider communication?
Being able to say what they mean and mean what they say. Now, I don't want to stereotype all men.
Oh no, that's okay. We can. And this
Oh,
in this juncture, we can stereotype as much as we want because
okay.
I think what people want to say, and I think it's a cop
Okay.
out kind of to say, oh, I don't want to generalize. It's okay to generalize because we can't get past it if we all don't see that problem and
Right.
try to rectify that problem by saying, well, at least I'm not that way.
Yeah. So we just need more men to be honest with their feelings and
That's
then
right.
communicate that.
Okay. And that's it or more? You got more?
I mean, I could go on all night, but we'll just
Oh,
start.
okay. Give me more if you got
No,
more.
no, 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 no. Let's see what my sister next to me would like to say.
You funny. Go for it, Erica.
Good morning, you all. I don't really have a complaint, because I understand that, we have our own differences. We're men. I mean, they're men, we're women. But the one thing I've caught, that's because I'm a communicator, so that's a big thing for me. Whenever it doesn't matter if it's a relationship, romantically, or just friendship, I find that some men, not all, but some men, they, when you begin to show more of who you are, they're quick to maybe push back or give up. That's an issue. That can be an issue, shall I say, for me. So that's all that I had with that.
So they can't stand overly communicative women.
Maybe not overly, but when I show my true self, because that's only reserved for special, people, then maybe he's not able to handle it.
Okay.
And maybe it's not him, maybe it's just me, but
All right. All right.
Yeah.
I got you. All right. So what I hear so far, is that a lot of men don't know how to take the hint and to not
What
pursue.
is that?
I don't know, the dog. Um, not pursue women when they say no. They can't take no. Um, they want traditionality, but they can't actually offer traditionality on their own. They have no concept of how to run their own home, so they can't have a concept of how to run a home with a wife. And they don't really know how to handle the full version of a female because I think partially may not understand the full version of themselves. That's just me.
Yeah,
So they can't handle the full version of a woman when they finally come out and talk about it.
right.
Okay. So we'll tackle this one by one, and I'll give you from the male perspective about this is again the male perspective, not a man's perspective. I'll clarify. Let me clarify first. Um, there is a massive difference between a boy and a man, and a male and a man. And I
Mm-hmm.
think society has fooled a lot of people, including males, into thinking that a certain type of behavior exemplifies a man when it only exemplifies a male or boy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a man understands what responsibility, which takes care of Keisha's question. A man understands what traditionality means in a marriage, which answers Karma's question. And a man understands boundaries, which answers Amber's question. A man can also handle the totality of his female and have no problem understanding his totality and the companionship between the two, which answers Erica's question. The problem is that there are a very limited amount of men in today's society because there's been a massive conflation of manhood and an existence of testosterone. We somehow feel like if I can be the most champion amongst females, I'm manly. If I can have more toys, I'm manly. If I can talk down to females, I'm manly. If I can fight, I'm manly. And none of those things dictate man.
Right.
And so what ends up happening, um, is where am I hearing my echo?
I
What
don't
ends
hear.
up happening is a massive problem between the male and the female on the level of woman and man. Because on a biological level, there's no incompatibility. We can be honest with that. Every man can be for every male can be for every female. The compatibility there exists on a biological level. Of course, interaction happens, and then you have problems with personality types, and you have problems with history, and you have problems with all this
Somebody
stuff.
needs to mute their mic.
I don't know who that is, but we'll figure it out. Um, the problem enters here is that we have a society that tells you that you cannot, as a male, cannot um, be emotionally available. Because once you're emotionally available, you're no longer man. You're just becoming a soy boy.
I'm
You got
sorry.
to
What did you
push
just
that.
say?
Yeah, so as long as you're not emotionally available, people will call you a beta. If as soon as you become emotionally available, most
Uh huh.
men will consider you soft.
Oh,
And so a lot of men just avoid talking about emotional stuff. What most men don't seem to understand, real men today should understand, is that the emotionality of a man can be expressed towards another man in a way that's not really seen as emotional by a woman. What women need to understand is not all men are going to be able to be emotionally available to you in the way you seem to want emotionality towards you. The same way sometimes you might need to only talk to a girl about something. You have your
oh my
girlfriend.
God. What is happening right now?
What do you mean?
Marlon, Marlon.
What?
Okay. You're saying a whole lot of a lot. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
You realize that we're women.
I get you.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
talking
I'm
to you
just
from a male perspective.
I know,
Yeah.
but okay. Go ahead.
So what's the problem?
Nothing.
No, no, no. I need to. It's an open discussion, Keisha. What's the problem?
You're you're basically explaining
Yes.
that men are emotionally retarded.
No, I'm saying men are emotionally shut off because we've been told to be.
By who?
We know how this is society.
Okay.
Okay, look at Kevin Samuels. Has he ever told men to be emotionally available? No.
Okay, but Okay, what I'm trying to figure out is where are you going with this? Because the way I see it is real men show emotion.
I didn't say it didn't.
Oh, okay.
I said society tells men they can't.
Got you.
Right. Right.
A real man does, but society will tell you if you do that, you're no longer a man. You're a soy boy or a beta male.
Oh, makes you weak.
It makes you weak.
Okay, got
Is
you.
And
what they think.
I'm saying that a man does indeed show emotionality, but a
Mhm.
lot of the times it's not to a female because
Oh,
our version of emotional expression is
ah,
not the same. It's not on the same level. So, like, I have a friend, okay, and David is his name. This is a true thing, okay? So, people, I'm trying to be anecdotal. He and I have a way of communicating when we're in that headspace where we need to talk to each other on an emotional level.
okay.
I can be somewhat that way with my wife, but it's very difficult for me to get certain points of views across to her emotionally as a man without it coming across as though I have a problem telling her things. She'll read too much into it or not read enough into it.
Okay,
So
got
we've made an arrangement where if I am having a hard time with life or something, I do have an outlet. So it doesn't affect the relationship between her and I. And that outlet is another male who can understand my male psyche, has been there before, and I can communicate with him on a level that's still emotionally based, but I can still reason through it to get out of that emotion because we don't need to dwell there. As men, it's not a place we ought to dwell. Females either, because it's a very fickle place to be. But women, and you, I'm sure you can agree on this one. As far as the ratio is concerned, women are more emotionally driven than men. Is that a false
absolutely.
statement?
Yes. No, it's
Okay,
not.
good.
True.
Yes, that's true.
So,
It's
and
true.
with that being the case, and it's a different type of emotionality too. It's not the
Right.
same as men. So we find outlets in men, boy time, and sometimes you may look at it, that's not being emotional. Oh, trust me, it's being very emotional because we're being very vulnerable to the men that we're talking to. It may not be the kind of conversation that you might have. So when we have this blanketed statements being put over people, men are not emotionally available to you. We're not emotionally available to you. And that is a problem because we don't really know how to be. Because every female needs a different amount of emotional availability. So let's start with you, Keisha. Let me ask you this question.
Okay.
What would you consider emotionally available from a male?
Just be quiet and let me vent.
Not to try and fix it.
Nope, I don't need you to fix it. I
Okay?
just need
So
you to listen.
what will he do if what you say affected him emotionally?
I'm sorry, what'd you just say?
If something you said in that
Uh-huh.
venting
Yes.
affected him emotionally, what should he do?
Express it
To who?
to me.
But you just told me he needs to be quiet and listen.
No, no, no. First listen. And then if
Mhm.
something I said affected you, then let's talk about it.
But isn't that considered fixing it? Suppose he comes across with his emotional level as fixing it to you. What does he do then? How should he
No, no,
express
I
it?
don't need listen.
Mhm,
Pause. Okay. I'm one with healthy communication, right?
mhm,
So
mhm,
even though when I'm venting, all I need you not to do is feel personally attacked by what's coming out of my mouth,
mhm,
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I feel like if you love me and you understand me, that even though it may seem like I'm talking to you, there should
mhm,
be no question at any point that I'm actually
Mhm.
talking to you.
mhm,
Yes.
So a lot of what ends up happening in relationships is I'm venting about something. It's maybe generic and I'm like going off, right? And
mhm,
I'm talking. And then the first thing the man does is he becomes defensive and he's like,
mhm,
what are you talking about? Like, I didn't do that. And you're like, dude, I'm not talking to you. I'm not
Right.
shut up. Just listen.
mhm,
And then that's how like other things start to happen. So I find that men generally will feel attacked by our emotion
mhm.
and not really understand our emotion. I'm on the other hand, you could call me and start going off, and I would just be listening, like, damn, okay. And then when it's all said and done, at no point did I think he was talking to me. I'd be
Mhm.
like, no, he ain't talking to me. He's not talking about me. So it doesn't affect me emotionally.
So
And
That
you know what, Keisha, if I can say something, I think
absolutely.
they do that because men are automatic fixers.
Ah,
So I think they think, well, what did I do? How can I fix this? And yeah, I don't know how that translates. Maybe Marlon. I interrupted you.
no,
I'm sorry.
Okay, so it didn't really answer my question on the other front, but I get what you're saying. I fully get
No,
what you're
but
saying.
they you wouldn't feel the need to fix it if you weren't feeling attacked. If you not
Well,
when you're emotionally yes.
Yeah.
What are you trying to fix? If
Yeah.
I'm going off about Sarah and her stupidity, what are you trying to fix
no, no,
exactly?
no. Okay, again, I said if the man
Yes,
felt attacked or he felt a kind of way by something you said or hurt by something you said,
but
okay? If again, you can't dictate how somebody feels about
I
what you
agree.
say.
I agree.
Okay? So don't say he
That's
should
true.
not be offended by it when he can be offended by it.
I agree.
Okay.
Don't dictate.
So that right there, putting that limiter on him, if he knows that, he's not going to communicate with you.
Are you
If he
Mm.
emotional
believes
right
that
now, Marlon?
if you believe that he should not feel a certain way, he won't feel a certain way. And if he does, he won't tell you.
Oh, okay.
And that's a block to communication. While you might
Yes,
see
it
it as
is.
an open communication, he automatically sees it as fine. If I'm hurt and I'm not supposed to be hurt by it, I won't tell you I'm hurt. And that way you won't know I'm hurt, but I'll leave it and it will build up and he'll become more and more distant.
Okay, so what I think is interesting about that statement that you should say that is that if I'm venting and it's not even about you,
Mhm.
how can something I say hurt you?
I didn't say every time you vent. I didn't. Okay, again, I never said every time you vent. I said if, that word if, you say something that affects him emotionally and you don't want that thing addressed and fixed because you say he shouldn't
No,
be
I
offended.
don't want what I'm talking about to be addressed and
I
fixed.
get
If
that.
I
I
said
get
something that hurts him, obviously I don't wanna hurt him, so he has the right to say to me, "Hey, this bothered me," or "This hurt my feelings."
what you just said. It shouldn't because he should know that you don't mean to.
No, it shouldn't, but I mean, you can't dictate and delegate how I mean, people say things all the time that you hurt their feelings and that was never your
Perfect.
intention.
Now, if you're saying that you're open to him coming back and saying, okay, this did this to me, and
Yes.
not telling him to shut it off because it shouldn't, two different things. So I want to make sure we're clarifying that if he does have an issue with something you said,
Yes.
whether he should or not on your end, that he can come back and say, "It did."
Yes, but you're
Perfect.
not understanding what I'm saying.
Oh,
You're
I'm
not.
perfectly understanding it. I
Okay.
can repeat to exactly what you said, and I know exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
Can I can
Go
I
ahead.
say something?
Mhm.
Well, someone in the comments says that maybe she vents too much. Well, in the case if you're in a relationship with someone, you're supposed to be trusting them and caring and all these things that goes with it. Who do you vent to? If you can't vent to him, who you gonna go to?
I'm not, and I disagree
No,
that you
I'm not
can. That
saying
yeah, I
Marlon.
know.
I'm not talking
No,
about you, Marlon.
I know.
I'm
I'm
talking
talking
about
to
the
the
person
person in
in
the
the comment.
chat. You can't vent too much. Now, what you can do is vent too little.
Mhm.
That's what you can do. You can
Well
vent too little to
Right.
cause problems. Too much is an
Right.
impossibility.
it's interesting because I can read some of the chat. I can see some of it. I can tell some of the people don't like what I'm saying.
Well, and that's okay because that's why we're having this discussion.
Exactly.
I don't care.
This is, and well, maybe you should.
You
Because
know,
they're in their place and we're in our space. So, it's an open communication place. Where did I was just gonna ask, literally just gonna ask her a question about something, about her comment about the traditional marriage thing. And she dips.
Who are
Maybe
you gonna ask?
maybe she'll come back. Karma. Maybe
Oh.
Karma will come. There she goes. Okay. I thought she just left because like y'all ain't listen to me. I'm leaving.
No, you had me muted.
Oh, sorry. I thought I unmuted you. All right.
No,
So I had a so okay. You chime in. What
uh,
about what we were talking about?
I completely get what Keisha's saying.
Mhm.
She needs him to listen without the offer to fix or repair everything in her life. She's fully capable of doing that.
Mhm.
She's asking him not to step in at that point. She's not asking him to not step in when something she said has hurt his feelings
Right. Got that.
or offended him in some way.
Mhm.
She's saying, I don't need you to be the fixer for everything.
Right. Right. And you agree with that concept.
Yes.
Okay. Um, but I did have so with that in mind, do you think that that particular dynamic is part of a traditional marriage?
Communication should be part of any marriage.
Mhm.
The fact
Yes.
that a partner should be able to listen to one or the other without automatically jumping to I can fix all your problems and be a good
Right.
listener. That you have to be a good listener in order to be a good partner.
Right.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but where in the traditional sense of marriage is that?
I believe it would be all throughout any traditional marriage. It the thing that confuses me when people, yes, the husband is supposed to be the leader of the family. We
Mhm.
understand that he's more physically dominant. I think where lines have gotten skewed and people are bypassing the extension of each other in communication skills, everybody jumps to being offended and taking everything to offense that is said and done.
Mhm. And why do you think that is?
Whether it be society or being emotionally stunted,
Mhm.
I'm finding on a lot of cases.
Now, so on a traditional marriage level, do you females on the panel believe that the majority of women are set to be traditional wives, but the men are the problem in traditional marriages?
No, not
No.
No.
not anymore.
No.
So right now, as it stands, we're at an impasse because both are looking for traditional, but neither are ready for traditional.
Well, I think what
So can
traditional
I talk
has
on
changed.
that really
Oh,
quick?
hold on,
Yeah,
hold on, hold on. Keisha's going first. Go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead,
I
Keisha.
I I I think that what traditional marriage once looked like and what traditional marriage looks like today is two different things.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
I think you would have to clarify when you say traditional, what traditional to you looks like. Like
Okay.
my idea of a traditional marriage probably looks different than someone of today's
Right.
marriage.
So what you gonna
Value.
say, Erica?
Well, I think when it boils down to it, because we should could look at the root of the problem. If your person isn't, if they're not healed in one way or another, then they're gonna bring that to that relationship. And I think a lot of people just hop in these relationships of any kind, and they're still carrying so much old baggage, and so now you're the problem, and then you're the problem, and then there's so much finger pointing. I mean, you know,
So, Karma, what would your definition of traditional marriage be?
Well, I believe traditional marriage is not as viewed as it was before. To
Uh-huh.
me, traditional marriage is you have both partners, as society has dictated, having to be out there and work 40 plus hours a week.
Mhm.
Traditional marriage to me should be both partners step in and help without question, without
yeah.
direction, to do what needs to be done to get that household moving, that family moving.
Mhm.
A lot of men still want to view traditional marriage as yes, my wife may be working 40, but she still is responsible for all the household chores. She's still responsible for the child rearing. Society has dictated traditional marriage needs to adapt and change, but people aren't wanting to adapt and change.
I think then the definition of actual traditional marriage has been meshed with current traditional marriage. More so, I think it actually been mixed with common law more than anything else.
See, I didn't know that
Um,
was the
a, a,
question.
a traditional marriage does not require the wife to work. Even if she does work, it's a choice, but it's not required of her to work. There's no a 40-hour week, then come back and clean the home. The
Mhm.
traditional way was that she was home. And it's not like the
Correct.
woman had a problem with being home because the man took care of what he had to take care of so that she would not need. And if that meant him working 4 jobs, 3 jobs, he'd do that. Not
Mhm.
her, he would do that to do exactly what needed to get done for the home so that she could focus on the things that her role in the marriage was about rearing the kids, making sure that they learned what they needed to learn, and taking care of the household so that nothing else went awry. And if things broke, man fixes. And
But don't you
it
think that's
happened
unfair to
well for a
men?
long. What's that?
Don't you believe that is unfair to view a man? You must work 4 or 5 jobs
No,
and
no,
have
it's
no
not unfair to a
downtime.
man. It's not unfair to a man. It's unfair to a boy or a child or a fickle human being. But for a man, we pride ourselves in work. A real man will pride himself in being able to. Okay, I'll tell you this from my perspective and my dad's perspective, and he was a man's man. He had no problem working 2 jobs, right? And one job had him working at home as a cobbler, and he'd be in his shop, and then he'd go to work at 6 a.m. in the morning, get back at 5, go back to his shop. So he was doing 2, but his job was to make sure that my mother had everything she needed to make sure the home ran right. Anything she needed, it was there. He didn't complain about pain. He didn't complain about being tired. None of that stuff. You know why? Because that's our chore. That's our calling. We have no problem. We should not have a problem with that. Men, real men, should not have a problem working multiple jobs, working long hours, working hard. You know why? Because we know what our goal is. Our goal is to supply our family with what they need, period. Now,
But
a
don't
woman,
those needs
what's that?
also fall outside of financial needs?
Yes, and that's what we're supposed to fulfill as well.
So may I say something, interject really quickly?
Hmm.
And I just have to say this. It was said in the comment section, and I totally agree with that. If your foundation of any relationship does not, if God is not that foundation, you ain't got nothing. You don't have anything. And so we have a lot of people that you want to fix your problem, but God ain't nowhere in it. So, and we already know that nobody, our goodness is like unto filthy rags, as he say. So you're trying to fix something and God ain't even in it. Baby, you doomed. Your relationship is
I
doomed.
get that, and I get that.
Yeah.
But it's the only
Yeah.
reason that a man would work as much as they do. Like my father was, he was good, a good man.
But
Um,
what is the definition of traditional marriage?
okay, so that is
What the
the
Bible say.
hold on. That is the function of how the traditional marriage functions, right?
Correct.
Um, the roles in it are different, but the definition of a traditional marriage is the man, head, woman,
Women.
and then children,
Correct.
right? Technically,
Uh-huh.
if you want to look at it from a biblical traditional, it's God, man, woman, child. Okay?
Hmm.
Which means that, and this is how people, this is where, this point here is where men screw up and women screw up. Both screw up equally in this particular point right here. Men want to gain subservience from the woman without God,
Yes.
and without
Yes.
treating the woman as God would treat the man, and expect the woman
Right.
to fall in line.
Boom, boom, boom.
Woman wants to be treated like the way Christ treats the church without following God and try to use and force the man.
Right.
Hold on, Erica, and make it
I'm
happen,
sorry.
right? Good. So when we have that dichotomy happening in the home, we have a problem because neither one of them are functioning under the roles that they're put by the putter, as
Mm-hmm.
he would put it. So if
Yeah.
I am following God
Oh, yes, Cynthia.
and I'm going after God with all I have, automatically my treatment of my wife would reflect that. And she will
That's
have
right.
no problem being the neck or body to the head. She'd have no problem seeing me as the head of her. Because you know why?
Right.
The head is not mistreating her. The head is not abusing her. It's not asking her to do something outside of
Mhm.
normal human expectations. I'm not coming home and demanding you cook for me. I'm not doing that because that's not how it would be. The woman, on the other hand, once she is following God, will understand and see in me what I am doing and will have no problem cooking, will have no problem cleaning, will have no problem training the kids. None of that problem would
Mhm.
be a problem because we're all following one particular role model.
Amen.
But we have left that role model forever ago. So in today's
Amen.
marriage, people are looking to what society to tell them what to do, and we have problems with it.
Right.
So now a man, you can't be helping with the cooking because that's not what men do. And woman, you can't be going out to work, or you should be going out to work because men shouldn't be the breadwinner. You should be the head. So we run into a whole bunch of complications. So now traditional marriage today is so convoluted, you can't even go back to the old because what it looks like now is chauvinistic.
Right.
So what is your
They say.
suggestion for today's
Hold on
tradition?
one second.
So,
Can we let
mhm.
Amber speak? Because she's the married
Yeah,
one.
I was going to ask her. Yeah. Well, she's a second
Oh,
married.
I'm married. Yeah.
There's three
Oh,
of us
okay.
here. Yeah.
So now, my husband and I, when we first got together, we wanted the traditional, like old school traditional marriage, right? But in reality, we started with a like what people deem the modern day marriage. We were both working 40 hours a week, going through all that like nonsense. Neither
Mhm.
one of us was happy. We were happy with each other, but not our situation, you know? So we decided to go full on 360 and go back to like 100% old school tradition. He worked a lot. I stayed at home. I didn't work. I didn't make no money, but I managed everything I was supposed to to provide like my end of the relationship. But I wasn't really happy with that, and he wasn't either. So I think what people have to realize is it's okay to take certain aspects from the traditional old school and the new modern day. And if you mesh it together and that is what works for you and your family, that's fine. Like my husband, he works long hours, he provides the bulk of the money. I do my reselling, I bring in a little extra money, and that's like what we call our play money. We want to take the kids to the zoo money type stuff. He handles the manly stuff. I don't have to fix my truck, he fixes it. That's his job. He does the, if the tree needs to be trimmed, he does that. But I make sure he has a hot meal. So we have some things that are like modern day, but we have a lot of stuff that is traditional in our marriage. But we learned that in order for both of us to be happy, so that way our kids could be happy, we had to kind of mesh the two together. But we also communicated that to each other. I don't like this. I didn't like when my husband was working 3 jobs, 90 hours a week. And I was like, if I can lighten up some of that load off you by hustling a little bit on the side so you can see your children and you can see me, then I'm willing to do that. But we had that communication. But that's what fails is people say it's either has to be traditional or it has to be modern day, and there's no communication in the middle. And I
I
think
hear.
that's what a lot of the problem is.
So the mix is not a problem for me. Like I said, when you see a need, you feel a need. Okay, because sometimes a man may go down, broken leg, broken back, whatever, something bad. Like with me. Okay, um, and you find a way to make ends meet one way or another. Understandable, but that's part, like you say, of communication. We need to sit down, have a household talk about how things are going to run because I just went down, and we need to find another way of making this work. I have no problem with that kind of communication. No problem with that. That's not a deviation from traditional marriage whatsoever. Because in essence, what you're trying to do today is find a way for men and women to coexist, coming from completely different lives. Some of us may not have grown up with our spouse. Some of us have not found ours yet. So we're going to have to encounter somebody. Some of us are not looking anymore. I don't know which one of those Keisha lands on or which one of those Erica lands on, but I think you, Keisha, have been through one before, or at least a
Yeah.
relationship before. Um, so you know now what not to want in a relationship for sure,
Yes.
having been in one. But whether you're looking for one or not, you can blatantly see the impact of how men and women, but mostly men, have taken what society tells them that they ought to be and run away from marriage anymore. They even run away from relationships anymore. What
I
they're doing it now is a sleep with and walk
yeah,
away.
I agree.
Or
And
you
I,
end up
and that's how
with,
we steer away from. That's what we need to steer men away from, males away from.
well, yes, and then you end up with confused men who,
Confused males, yes.
yes, who basically leave the married woman, that the term is married single mother.
Hmm.
And, often because my husband does have to work long hours, he's often away from home anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks at a time. That leaves the brunt of everything on myself. How are we supposed to, there situations deemed that, I needed to work and I actually enjoy the work, which is fine. My husband is great and fine with that. It provides that extra income. But when we put on men that they must work endlessly, they cannot be there to fulfill those other needs.
Hmm. Well, that's the
Huh.
problem. This is part of prepping marriage, right? This is why you have to make sure the person you pick and the situation you're picking is amicable to what you can handle. Okay? You don't want to go into marriage just because it's marriage. A lot of people go into marriage because they think they have to be married, or they think marriage
Right.
is a good idea, and they get happy with this pie in the sky idea that marriage will be great.
Right.
Marriage is calculated.
Right.
It is very stinking calculated. And if you're not prepared for the tough, and I mean it gets nasty, bad, hard sometimes with finances. If you're not
Mm-hmm.
ready for that, you're gonna fall into the place where, well, this is not how it should have been. So here's the thing: if you're looking for a spouse, the person you pick, which is why some of the vows that they get, I don't believe in the vow things anyway, but that's a second thing all by itself. If you're
Mm-hmm.
picking somebody, you have to be aware that this person has to be able to handle you at your worst.
Right.
And you have to be able to handle that person at their worst.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean handle as in put them in their place, but be able to deal with them, love
Yeah.
them through it, and recover from whatever disagreements you have. If you can't do that, marriage is never going to be for you.
Mm-hmm.
The traditional way of doing it,
Oh.
by even the world standard of traditional, has never, ever, ever, ever given that opportunity to each side. They give you a cop out. They give you a way out. If he gonna talk to you like that, you better put him in it. Or if she gonna talk to you, better listen. If each of you can't communicate angrily or happily, you're not gonna be able to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about communication. So then
Hmm.
when you said about men venting,
Hmm.
um, what does it mean when you say like a man being affected by a vent session? What exactly?
Okay. I'll give you an example. I mean, I don't really know what you would be venting to him about to begin with, from work or from, because I don't know if that's something that you would be venting to him about versus a female. I don't know what exactly. So give me a scenario that you would vent
No,
to a
I,
man about.
it doesn't. It could be anything. I'm just asking, like, for you to elaborate because you said that he could be affected by the vent session. So I just was kind of trying to understand where you were coming from with that.
Okay, so some women will have a rough day at home, and the man comes home and they want to vent to him about what's happened in the home.
Okay.
Okay. Um, and she may say something that in his mind, again, you're talking to another individual, not you.
Mm-hmm.
You may say something that in his mind it's something that he might have been responsible for or subliminally responsible for to take care of that went
Okay.
awry.
Okay.
And then in his mind, it's like, you could have just told me you didn't need to vent about it. I
That
mean, you could
that
have
makes
just,
sense now.
yeah, okay. And so then he's like all offended that you didn't bring this issue to him before. It's no different than a female's emotionality, but we handle it more egregiously in our mind because we're like, you couldn't say nothing before, and then we get mad, or you see this look come over a male's face like this right here, and in our head we're thinking, you couldn't just tell me that to fix that, because in our mind instantly we go into what could have been done to avoid this whole venting session, and that's what
Marvin,
the
can I
problem
ask a
could be. So
question?
yeah, go ahead.
You said that when you enter into marriage, you need to be. I don't know why nobody can see me.
I
Okay,
can see you.
it
We can
said
see
when
you.
you enter into marriage that that you both parties need to be able to handle one or the other at their lowest. But how much is too much?
There is no too
Yes,
much.
I don't agree with that.
There is no too much.
there is a too much, I
Yeah,
promise.
What's your too
I
much?
agree with
What's your too
Marva.
much?
What's my too much?
Hmm.
Without giving out a whole lot of personal details, I will say that we'll say last 14 plus years
Hmm.
has been my husband at his worst.
Hmm.
So does a traditional sense of the marriage dictate that I continue to have to live with his worst for the remainder of my life?
So is his worst a godly worst or a manly worst?
Oh, a manly worst.
Okay, then there you go. Like I said, if the head is missing its aim, if the head is missing its aim, how are we expecting anything down below that to really work functioning correctly at all? So if you know
Then
it's a
how are we
manly,
supposed to solve this?
I'll get that. If it's a manly wrongdoing, right? If it's a manly wrongdoing, how have you? Okay, I'll give you, without going into detail. How have you handled that situation in the past?
Um, I would say it started out with, offers of whatever you need me to do to help you get to the better place. Let's
Hmm.
let's bring in therapy. Let's bring in interventions of any sort, understanding.
Hmm.
Um, and then when I would approach the subject and it would bring offense or hurt, um, it would cause an explosion, so to speak. So I think my natural reaction is, well, let's not approach this subject. Let's just hold it back and tamp it down, which makes the situation worse.
Worse, right? That's
But
a
when
natural progression of manly stupidity. Yes, of humanly
correct,
stupidity.
Well,
Yes.
the reason, excuse me, the reason why I asked that, because it goes back to what I believe. Sometimes we can get into these relationships and doggone it, you're just not meant to be. That's why it's so doggone super hard. You trying to make it till you fake it, or fake it till you make it. It ain't clashing. It's not coming together because you're trying to make something of something that's not even meant to be. That's why I asked the question of how much is too much, because doggone it, if it becomes a doggone marathon and I'm doing more work then maybe we ain't meant to be.
potentially, but it's hard to walk away from 24 years of marriage without me saying
No,
I
I'm
have
talking.
given my all.
Yeah, I'm talking about on a godly perspective. We can't just choose and hook up with who we want to be with, and that's part of the reason why some of us differ, is because I'm looking at a godly perspective. If you sitting up here putting in all that work and it's just not coming on together, then to me that lets me know that it's not meant to be.
And that's where my mind has gone.
Hmm.
But I also don't want to be, of that statistic of a failed marriage, of someone who just used divorce as a cop out.
Right. So the question then becomes this, okay? Um, and for people who are on the panel that are not um, believers or not godly, I apologize. This might get a little religious, but it's the only way I know how to handle situations anymore. But it's not like me apologizing that I have to. If you didn't anticipate it going this route,
I'm sorry.
tough. No, it was going to go this way either way. Um, when we start to evade God's intervention in things, and we start to try and figure things out the way the human populace does, we have one of two options: retaliate in anger, or deal with things the way everyone else does, which is run. Okay? What we don't ever seem to want to do is internalize the things that are affecting us and fix it with God, and or the person that I'm talking and dealing with do the same. Your husband, and I can blatantly say this without any care in the world, does not have a intimate relationship with God, and hence it's reflecting in his behavior outside. Okay? And if you are not constantly directing him to it in your behavior, it will also keep him away from it. I'm not saying that you're at fault. I want people to understand this. I am not saying Karma's at fault for what's happening with the husband.
No, where
I'm
there's
saying the
blame to be
husband
laid
is
on both
responsible.
sides,
Right. The husband is
always.
definitely 100% responsible for his reaction to everything. 100%. Understand that. Because a real man would identify what is going on with him and fix it. A non man will not, and will retaliate in physical aggression, verbal aggression, and stupid behavior. That's what a
Mhm.
non man, that's what a boy or a male does. I want people
Mhm.
to be very clear about this.
Yeah.
A male or boy will react to situations in a relationship adversely because he's not a man. Which is why I don't want females to conflate the things that are boy and male related to what's man related.
Yeah.
So when you're hunting or seeking a partner, what you look for are manly qualities. How does he handle rough situations, problems that might be really daunting to him? And they're very clear tells. And I know Keisha can probably echo back in her past and see males, that right off the top you can tell, yeah, he's too volatile. Right? Yep. Nope. Handled that way too. Nope. Nah. Nope. Way too much. And you can tell. And then there are some that will take the time to evaluate their emotional state and rectify it.
Mhm.
Men today were sold a bag of goods by a lot of the male influencers that they can't do a certain thing, be a certain way. They have to be very hard. They have to be very brash, very rude, um, and none of that works in a marriage. None of that even works heck, it doesn't even work with yourself. Um, Women then have taken that side of men to apply it to how men are. That's not how men are. That's how boys are. A man can look at a situation, remove the emotional from it, and deal with the situation as it is. A man can look at a situation, apply the emotion that needs to be there, and deal with the situation as is. A boy cannot decipher what he needs to do. He has one mode, and that's rage. Period. Um, do you have a whole lot of men out there anymore? No, you don't.
Mm.
And that's factual. I can say that out loud. There are not a whole lot of men out there anymore. And if there are, they're already married and happily so. Okay?
And then I get the offense of if I cannot find this in a partner, I cannot rectify this in a partner, I'd rather be single.
Yes.
And society comes at me and says, that's wrong. You're not being a woman. It's not okay.
And there's no hard and fast rule that you have to be married because you're a woman. The same way there's no reason that you have to be married as a man just because you're a man.
May I interject?
Go ahead.
I'm looking in the comments as you all talk, and Jessica, I can't pronounce your last name, Jessica. I'm sorry, but she said something that is so profound, and I think this is something that needs to be put into view. Also, she said there's a difference between a man and a man of God.
hmm I don't think so.
You don't think so, Mr.
No,
Berno?
no, because they're one and the
Oh
same.
my God.
They're one and the same.
Well, I would like to say something really
Go
quickly.
ahead.
I have a really good example of what marriage looks like. My parents are still together.
hmm
Okay, they have been for over 50 years. My mom has been with my father since she was 13.
hmm
But the one thing that I have seen in my parents' marriage is not perfection, it's
Right.
understanding.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the difference now is everything is very disposable. So
hmm
when I'm tired of you, I don't have to work on it because there's something else waiting and I could just go replace it. If you took the same energy that you put into a new relationship and applied it to your current relationship probably would work.
Easily.
So I
In pursuit.
recognize, yeah, I do recognize that society looks different when it comes to relationships. Everything is instant gratification, everything is perfection, everything is feelings and how I feel. But with that being said, the one thing that my parents have in their relationship that you don't see very often is my father is the head of that relationship. He is the final say. So he has the conversation with my mother. They talk about it, but if my father puts his foot down and says, "No, that's not what we're doing," that's the end of that
Right.
conversation.
See,
Right.
I agree with that, Keisha. It
Yeah,
should be that
so
way.
yeah, so what I find in what I've seen outside, past divorce relationships is that my personality is extremely strong, but in my relationships, I'm extremely submissive because I recognize what that looks like because I've seen it with my parents. So what people see of me on the outside is not what goes on in my home. But with that being said, I'm super traditional, right? So like I feel like even though I work, my responsibility is still to take care of home, take care of the kids, take care of my
Right.
my mate, right? That's still my responsibility. So I've chosen to take this job outside of the home, whether that be because it makes life easier because I want to buy more things. I don't know, because I want to drive a fancier car, because I want a bigger house. Whatever the reason is that I'm working, um, then I made that decision to do so.
hmm
So I'm going to help carry that burden. But at the end of the day, my first responsibility is home. That's what I was supposed to do. That's where it's supposed to be. And that's where it needs to be. So that's the priority. So you don't get to complain about it. My mom told me once upon a time that moms always get the raw end of the deal. When the kid is sick, the mom has to stay home from the party, but the dad still gets to go. That's just the nature of the beast. That's just how it is. And so I've always had that mindset. So I think for me personally, men lack the ability to control it, right? So like I'm the one that's like I'm shopping with my girlfriends because I see my mom do it, right? And it's like, hey, I want to you she calls my dad, hey, I want to get these shoes. Is it okay if I buy these shoes? Right. And then my dad says, well, how much are the shoes? because my mom has 750 pairs of shoes already in the closet, right? And she says, "Oh, they're X," and then my dad will say, "Sure, that's fine, whatever." He'll say, "Well, wait a minute. I thought you wanted to get a new refrigerator," or "Wait a minute, I thought that you wanted to go on vacation," or "Well, wait a minute, I thought that you wanted, this." So my dad will check her in the space that she's in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if he says, "Nope, sorry, we're not doing that right now," she can be mad, she can be whatever, but she's just not going to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, as women, is hard for us, right? Because what's the first thing we say? "Well, I work too. Well, I earn money too." So I don't think we really want men to lead, if we're going to be honest. We really
Okay.
don't want that. We say that, but we really don't want that, because then that comes out as toxic masculinity, and
And
I'm not going to be controlled.
That yeah, that sounds, yeah, Keisha,
and
that
that's the
sounds about
problem.
right.
That's
Yeah,
the problem with society's effect on both men and women.
yeah,
Okay, we talk about a lot about how men are affected by it, but women are affected on society's level by having them be dissatisfied with what they're actually looking for.
yes,
Traditional marriage, yeah, well, but then when traditional marriage hits, now you want to mix traditional marriage with modern marriage, and then you say, well, that's no longer traditional marriage. But back to you, Karma, and your situation. Okay, um, it is, yes, it is very difficult. The situation when the male in the relationship is in a position of not being willing to address a personal issue that's affecting the family. Fully understand
yeah,
that. There are laws that can be enacted if things become overly aggressive. And I would suggest you enact those laws,
Hmm.
okay, for their benefit. Because what it has to do is it'll isolate the problem for them in their mind. People will say, well, you shouldn't report. No, no, you definitely should report. Here is why. If a man is allowed to continue in a certain pattern, especially if he's lost in his mind, he will continue to think that it's okay and right. Not just okay, but right.
Right.
Okay? Which is why more women, if it becomes handsy, everybody knows what I mean.
hmm
Oh
You
no,
get that you
I'm a
get that
fighter.
taken care of, right? No, you don't. This is the thing. You don't retaliate like that. Here's
Right.
what happens when you do retaliate like that.
Hold on, Marla. I gotta go, so I just want to say goodbye
Hey,
and
no
thanks
problem.
for
Thank you
having
for
me.
your
Bye,
input, my
Keisha.
dear.
Bye.
Thank you, Keisha.
Thank you, guys.
When you do retaliate like that, you solidify in his mind that his actions was worth doing.
Well, it's not even that would be the situation. Let's just say, I hate to put out super personal details, but we'll put it into, let's just say it's a substance abuse issue that has led him astray.
Right. And like I said, making sure that they isolate the problem in their mind is a reportable thing. It's
Okay.
okay to get them the kinds of help they need, whichever way you can. This is also part of being a helpmeet.
Yes.
Okay, this is part of you being a helpmeet. Is getting them the help they need by any means necessary. That don't mean you bail on them.
Right.
You're still there. But if you cannot give what needs to be given to fix the problem, you have to be able to isolate it for them. Now, for me, a lot of my growth has happened in solitude. And sometimes it's forced solitude because I have to then face my inner demons and myself without hurting someone else in the process. But I am well aware that I did do something to harm somebody. And I'm left alone with my thoughts. And a man alone with his thoughts, he has one of two ways out of it: hide it away or face it. By nature, that's what will happen. When you put him in a location where he can get the help he needs, though, he will face it. A lot of women don't see that as an option because, well, I should be able to help more. There are
Mm.
just some things you can't help with. And in those locations, you have to be able to make them stand on their own 2 feet and face the problems. Because when they come back a whole lot better off because they have now been able to identify, one, the problem as it was, and two, the precursors that led to that problem.
Okay.
In a marriage, it is not so much that you have to be the strong one all the time. And the same thing for the man. It has to be when you identify something that you cannot handle, know what to do with it as well. Because for better or worse is not meaning Better or worse, I'm done. No, better or worse meaning I have to find you some help. And whatever that is, whatever it takes, it's just like if the person comes down with cancer. Okay? If the person that you love comes down with cancer, this goes for you, Amber, Karma, Erica. If the person you love comes down with cancer, you're just gonna be like, well, I don't know how to help them. No, you're gonna fight tooth and nail to find every doctor that can possibly heal that person, regardless of how much it's gonna cost, how much time it's
Right.
gonna take. You don't care if you run yourself into the ground, you're gonna get them help. You have to look
Right.
at every problem to that end. That's why I say you have to enter into marriage with no end goal in sight. There's no cutoff point.
Well,
There is no cutoff point. You find the person to help, and this goes for every. If they start to abuse you physically, you put them in the places that they need to be to get them the help they need.
no, you won't.
It's what you need to do. You don't have to do it.
There's only so much you
You don't
can
have to
do
do it.
though.
Right,
Which is what.
Carmen.
Okay, listen.
Carmen.
I didn't say you fix it. You put them where they need to be fixed.
But I think what I'm hearing is, you know, and correct me if I'm hearing this wrong. You're
Mhm.
telling them to, say if it's an addiction issue, sign
Mhm.
them into a facility. If it's
Right.
abuse issue, that equals jail.
Right.
That's fine and fine on that last end, but you
Mhm.
cannot force an adult, say, to be in an addiction facility. They can check
Oh, yes, you
themselves
can.
out.
Yes, you can. Oh, you
Mhm.
definitely can.
How?
That's your role as a wife.
I
It's
can't. But it has to be with the threat of the marriage ending,
That
which
no,
for an
no, 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 no. Because here's the thing: a substance abuse clinic can start in prison,
mhm.
especially when that substance abuse is affecting not just your safety but the child's safety.
yes,
Right, and that's how you can claim it as a child safety issue.
I'm trying to catch what you're putting down here.
If the substance abuse is being brought into the home, that's a child safety issue,
Okay.
and that is reportable.
I guess my thought is I'm trying to fix this on
Your
the
own.
marriage end without having to
You
do
can't,
that.
but you can't. Sometimes
Okay.
you can't. That's the problem. I think, and that's what I just said before. You want to fix it,
Well,
but
yes.
just like with cancer, you can't fix it. You have to get somebody else to do that.
Huh, no, I get what you're saying. I guess the frustrating part to me is, men are supposed to be the dominant ones, the fixers.
Yeah, but
And
that's why you're a
I feel,
help
yeah,
meet. That's why you're a
yeah,
help meet. To meet the same kind of help that he has to need, you can meet it. You're gonna say something,
okay.
Amber?
So I just wanted to say, because long time ago I was in a relationship that had all that, the abuse, all that stuff. Not saying that's exactly what's going on with karma, but um, it got to the point where I had to give the man an ultimatum. I had to tell him, look, you either need to check yourself in to rehab and get help, or I will report you, force you to get the help, and then we can move on once said help is done. And he decided, I don't like the outcome of both of these, but one involves me losing my manhood and the other one involves me keeping my manhood. And he checked himself in to get help. So sometimes, as women, though, yes, we want our men to fix stuff. That's their job. At the same time, sometimes that ultimatum coming from a woman will open a man's eyes up to, shit, this is a problem and I need to fix it.
Okay.
So it's not so much that we're telling you that you should not try to fix. It's that you sometimes cannot offer the fix that's needed. We just, and sometimes a man cannot offer the fix that's needed for a woman's emotional upheaval.
Okay.
We don't have the capacity, the bandwidth, the words, the patience. Men have to be also agreed that they don't have sometimes the patience to deal with a woman's
Mm-hmm.
explosion of emotions. Okay, and but there is a way to offset that inability to handle it by finding a way for them to handle it. See, for like my wife, she's communicative to a point, but then not to a point. Okay, So for me, I have to understand that sometimes I'm not the outlet. I'm very communicative. I want to talk all the time, but she's not that way. And so she has found though a good balance between some female friends she has, groups of women that she can take a problem to, that I don't feel offended by because I know in and of myself I can't do nothing about it anyway. And they lead her back to God anyway. It's not like I have to worry about, them telling her, leave your man and blah blah. Because the women that she puts around her are women that are after the same thing that a married woman should be after, which is God. So they always take her back to that location. So I'm not worried about that. So when she comes back after having that time to vent to someone who can't actually communicate to her on the same level, I'm fine. And so is she. Now, do we have still our moments of terse interactions? Of course, it's human nature. That's what's going to happen. But the good side of marriage is that you can still go through that and come back later and be fine. The
Mm.
other aspect of it that I think women and men have a skewed version on this might get a little. If I'm not going to go too far into it. Okay. The other part that men and women have a problem using as a good tool to get out of rough argumentation systems is intimacy. We sometimes think that that is just not. That's just something that you have, and you either don't or you do have it. It is an amazing way to reconnect with your partner if used correctly. And people, people joke about just whip one out and you won't get mad at you no more. Technically, it is a way for you to be able to connect to that person on a level past words, on a level past crying. It was meant to be an actual there's a reason why when it's very hard for you to connect to your partner because you have many people still attached to you in that bedroom, which is why we try to avoid kids from doing that when they're young. Now, as a married couple, you have to use that. You have to use that. Um, we avoid it for some reason. And for some reason, it gets abused in the relationship as well. Now, the reason we have communication sessions like which is why this was really good. I'm going to tell you, I really enjoyed this. But here's the thing: single women like yourself, I think Erica is single, and like Keisha, there is a level of expectation that you have for men that you probably should not have of them if they're not following the main thing, which is God. So I always tell females this: if you are looking for a man, well, don't look for them in the church because they know how to go there and act like they know what they're doing. You you have to monitor them outside of the church session. Okay. Um, you say you wait to meet their family last. No, you meet their family first.
Mhm.
Meet the family first. The family will tell you a whole lot of things about them that they ain't gonna tell you out loud.
The
You meet.
family will give you the dirt.
They'll give you all the dirt, every last bit of it. You find out who their family is, and you go meet the family. You do your. It's investigatory. You have to do some investigation. This is
You
for
know,
single women now. So
real quick, just because you're talking about meeting the family. With my husband, I actually met both his brothers and his mom before I knew who he was.
see,
And I got all the dirt before I even said hi to him.
and it's helpful because here's the thing: sometimes a man won't come out and tell because we're naturally majority of us are not naturally communicative. We're just not naturally that way. We'll tell you what you need to know about us, and even sometimes what we even don't think we know about ourselves. But when you go to like mom or you go to sister or his best friend or a cousin, then he's in trouble because now people know him. He's freer with them. He's not trying to put up a facade for you.
Mhm.
Okay. He's not trying to act like he's something else. Now everybody that knows him outside of this I'm trying to woo you session will be able to tell you more about him than he will ever be able to tell you. And when you go to him and say, I know some things, you can be frank now with me. I know a whole bunch of stuff about you. Or all of it might be like, awesome, I'm on the right track. But you have to do your own due diligence, which is why you don't enter in a relationship without having done all of that so that you don't get burned and then say, well, if I had known, well, you should have known because that's your whole point of picking your spouse. You should know. Before you pick, you should know.
And I think one thing that like both men and women have to realize when you're in a relationship, there's certain things that like back in the day, I that my husband would do, and it would just like it would irk me. But I'm like, how do I bring this up to him without, you know, upsetting him or hurting his feelings? Because it's not that big of a deal, but it's just one of those little like petty things that kind of irk you the wrong way. And it's okay to go to somebody that is close with them and say, hey, look, I ain't trying to start nothing, but I have this issue. I want to get your opinion, how I can present it to him and kind of get some advice. I have done that because I have learned that if I start popping off on my husband, he's very like calm, cool, and collective and chill. And if I start popping off, he's gonna walk away. And then I'm just gonna be more hurt. But I've learned to talk to his uncle, who he's been really close with, and kind of gotten some advice from him back in the day. So now I know how to present things to my husband that he's not just going to walk away. So we're both going to be able to communicate.
Right.
And it's okay to kind of get that advice from somebody that's close to your partner because you're never going to know everything about your husband or your wife. I've been with my husband for a long time, 12, 13 years or something like that now. And I learn new stuff about him every day. He learns new stuff about me because people change over time. So you never stop learning. So it's okay to get advice from people that maybe have known him longer than you or known her longer than you.
Gotcha. Erica, you're up. She's still there. She disappeared.
No, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead. You
So
said you had something to say.
I'm one of those people. I like to keep it dirty dog real with you. I want to talk to. I am single. I want to talk to the Christian singles, possibly the Christians who are in relationships. If you do not have God as your foundation, then everything else will be shaken. We can't just go off of, well, I do this and do that. Listen, if God is not the foundation, then what are we doing? You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He has to be the head. He has to lead you into that relationship, because the truth of it is this right here. If he is not the one that led you to that person, then he is not obligated to maintain your mess. And so we need to remember that. I just wanted to address that because I think that's something that is really important. The heart of a relationship, the nucleus of a relationship, whether it's a friendship, relationship with your family, marriage, whatever the case might be, the nucleus, the head of that should be God. Honor him and he will honor you. Honor him, he will honor everything that you do, all of those that he bring into your path. And I enjoyed the live here. I enjoyed all the comments because I was watching the comments. But that's all I wanted to say. God bless you all, and you have a good day.
Right. And so, Karma,
Yes.
what you're expressing about the situation you're in, you seem fairly grounded still. If things, like I say, ever get to a point where there is, and I think you will know when you realize that it's just beyond your ability to affect. Do not think it's a form of weakness or copping out to get that person the help they need. I'll give you another example. About 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I was on the verge of self-harm. Okay. And my friend, another friend of mine, he's a paramedic. And he knows a lot about the laws of the land when it comes to certain things. And you can indeed, even for self-harm, have them forcibly checked in to a rehab facility. Granted, you can only keep them there for 24 hours, but you can do it repeatedly. So there are measures that you can take to put the other person, because technically, that is self-harm. And that can indeed lead to expulsion from this life.
Correct.
So you can indeed find them help outside of what you're capable of doing. Like I said, it's not you giving up on your marriage. It's not you giving up on your husband. If anything, you're digging deeper into a location to prove to that person that you do indeed love.
Mm.
Because your love it's propelling you to get them help at any level possible, because I want to see you at your best in this marriage. I want the best for you. I want to see the best version of you there possibly can be. And the only way for that to happen is for me to get you some help. I can't do it. And the only way I can do this is to isolate you to a point where you can see what I'm seeing. That is a full expression of love as you can possibly show. If it ever gets to that point, I just want you to understand that's not a sign of weakness or bailing. That's more of a
No,
sign of digging in deep to want to show the person that you love them.
I like that. And and here's thoughts, and people may rip me up in comments on this one. I'm at the deciding factors whether I want to continue with the relationship or not. But I
Mhm.
still, regardless of where the marriage ends up, I want him to seek himself cleaner and getting back to God for his children,
Right.
regardless of where the marriage goes. I feel like God has been left out of everything in all relationships anymore. I just don't see it present anymore.
Mhm. And that's okay, but I think he'll actually accomplish that better with you by his side than apart. Because he may not be saying this, but I can tell you probably as a man, I'm probably about 95% sure of this. He's probably harder on himself than you know about what's happening. He is probably pissed off that he cannot shake what he thinks he should be able to shake. He
True.
is probably more mad that he's ever put his hands on anything that's keeping him as a vice than anything he has ever been pissed off in his life about. But it's gotten to a point now where even he himself, by own will, sheer will, can't do anything about it. And that's beating him up twice as much because he's just realized that he's given up all of his will to something that he should have been able to willfully
Yeah,
reprove.
I basically essentially calling it he handed his life over to the devil at this
Yeah.
point.
And trust me, he knows. He is 100% aware of it. Um, but he also is in a place where he can't do anything about it himself. Not without some assistance. And you can't be that assistance. But what you can be is the help in getting him that assistance and have him see that I'm not gone. I'm not leaving. I'm not done. I would love to be because of my emotions, but I'm not, because I know you can fix this with God's help. But I also need to also show you that you need to be able to see it. The same way that Paul had to be blinded, the same way Jonah had to be swallowed by a fish, the same way Peter had to deny, all of them had to go through a crashing into a brick wall to stand up again. And sometimes you got to put that donkey in the road and tell him, if you go any further, you're going to get slashed up.
May
And
I
that
say
sometimes has to
something?
be you. Go ahead.
Also, Carmen, if you don't mind me saying so, um, you sounds like you might want to keep your marriage. Why don't you pray and ask God to deliver him from that? But not only that, but speak life over him. A lot of wives, not saying that you don't, I'm not saying that, but a lot of wives, they don't know how to speak life. Speak the word of God over your husband, because it's the enemy that's causing him, of course, as we know, to be in that situation. But we as women, I'm not a wife yet, but as a wife, you have the power within you, the authority. If y'all are actually meant to be, now I'm gonna say that. If y'all are meant to be together, you have the authority given by God to break chains off that man. Now, that's going to require you to get close to God and be submitted to him, but you have that authority. That's the reason why a lot of marriages, I believe, go down in the drain, because people they really don't know how to, you know,
Need help me.
how to go about it. But that's what my advice would be to you. Pray about it. Speak life
Okay.
over him. Declare the word of God over his situation and let God move in it. Amen.
But he's aware. Trust me, believe he's aware. As men, we don't like to admit that we're weak. Okay, so I'll give you an example of my dad, right? And unfortunately, but I still thank you, pops. I took every trait of this man to like the nth degree, though. Okay, so whatever trait he had of stubbornness, this Negro took too. Okay, um, this man would go to work every day, never complain. I had never heard this man complain about anything. I lie. Paper cuts. He complained about paper cuts, but he almost lose his finger. That didn't hurt. But he complained about a paper cut in a cold. So he was working, working, working. And then one day he got up, and this was the first time I ever heard him say, like he winced. I was like, I had never heard this man wince before. Like, what? Mom figured out that, okay, you're not going to work. Oh, yeah, I am. He's still trying to go to work because in his mind, I have a job to do. And there is nothing on earth that's going to stop me from doing my job. And it's not just because I have a job to do, it's because I have a family to look after. It just so happened that what he was feeling was not in a location that he could fix or work past. But he pushed himself to the point where he didn't even realize that his weakness needed to be addressed, and it was the end. That's how stubborn men are when it comes to admitting weakness. We will kill ourselves before we admit we're
Yes.
weak. That's how bad we are. We will die because we think we're not supposed to say, I need help. And that's an unfortunate trait of men, but it's the best trait of men because we will fight until we have nothing left in our bodies to protect the ones we love as well. So sometimes, though, just like my mother did, she had to isolate him from himself and tell him, you're not going to work. And he would say, yeah, and she said, you're not going to work. And I'm not dropping you, so you're not going there. She didn't take him to work. He didn't go to work, got checked in the hospital, never came back out. But that's the way it went, right? Men will work ourselves into the ground because, and when you're a real man, you'll do this because it's ingrained in you at a certain point when you realize what your role is. But it can be our detriment as well because we can push ourselves to the point where we find something to compensate for God, like your husband has found, and we will run ourselves into that instead of running ourselves into God. And then instead of finding him, we find this substance, we find this vice. The help meet portion of this is what your role is as a wife, is to make sure that you are there to support when he cannot move further forward. And that means in every aspect, support when he can't do it.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
so your role
Understood.
at this point is to plug him into something that can help him. And if that means a separation from the family to get help about that substance, but understanding, making sure he knows that I'm not leaving, I'm not gone, I don't have a mistrust of you. Forget, I know you can get through this. I know the man that I married is still in there, but I need you to get this looked at for your family's sake. You put it on him in a manner that makes him understand that this is about your strength coming back to you because your job is not yet done. It's almost like a superhero pump up, montage you have to give him.
So
But
challenge him.
it's the honest truth that you are, look, if you want to be what you say you want to be, and you are what you say you are, you're going to beat this. And I have a way for you to finally get the one thing you need to beat this. This is what it is. That's your job as a wife. And it's an amazing job because you're pretty much the one person that's bringing a superhero back to life. If you look at it really, a wife is the one that brings a superhero back to life. The same thing, even if you're just a girlfriend, it's the same exact thing. But today's society relegates women to being independent and strong, which is the weakest position you could be in. It relegates men to being promiscuous and a womanizer, which is the weakest position you could be in, and calling it strength.
But
That's
how
not
can being independent and strong be weak?
because you're not dependent in the role that you're supposed to be in.
Okay.
Why are you independent of God?
I'm not independent of God. I'm
But that's
independent
what the
of.
independence means. You can never be independent. You see what I mean? The
No,
instant you
I
put in
mean,
your
so
mind
you're
that you're
saying that in to follow God, that I must not be an independent
you
person.
can't be independent. Every day you have to be dependent on him. Literally every day, every minute of the day, it's a dependence on him. You can't be independent.
Oh,
He
I'm
doesn't
not
even
independent of
make you
God.
independent. Yeah, he doesn't. So
Yeah,
you're not independent.
May
You're
I
not even
chime in?
self-sufficient.
gotcha.
Hold on. You're not even self-sufficient. None of that applies to any human being that says they're going to follow God, like at all. Now he
Okay.
provides everything for you. Period. So you're not independent, and you shouldn't be. He doesn't want you to be. You might be by yourself, and that's fine.
See, and that's I was taking your words and applying them to
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah. No. No.
Okay.
No. 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 I'm talking about women today. They have two options: subservience or independence. And the way they have independence is that they don't ever take any word from anybody. But you don't realize that you
Understood.
can't be. You can't be that way. You have to be dependent on God. The same thing for a man. Oh, for me to be a man, I have to have, a high body count and make sure that women don't ever abuse me. No, no, that's being dependent on yourself and not dependent on God. That's not the godly life. That's not being a man. And so when you bring that into a marriage situation, which is what we do, as people who don't have God as a head, you bring your single-minded manhood and your single-minded womanhood into a marriage and try to make that become a partnership. Not gonna work. Not gonna work. You're gonna flee at the very first sign of hardship. Well, I'm an independent woman. You can't treat me like that. I'll bring in my own. That's what's gonna happen in the marriage. Or
So,
you need to be
Marlon,
shutting up. You gotta shut up. You're a woman. You don't know what you're talking about. That's what's gonna enter the marriage. And then before too long, you only last a year and you're done.
Marlon,
Mm.
what do you say for a single woman such as myself? I do take care of my household and everything like that,
Hmm.
but I definitely want to be a wife someday.
Hmm.
The society and the church would say that I'm an independent woman.
Hmm.
So, what would you define independent? Because I'm seeing in the comments they're a bit confused about it too, about
Hey,
being you can't be independent. So, you're
you
not
can't.
talking about taking care of yourself until your man come around, right?
Okay, let me redefine it for you, so in case people are messing up the definition here.
Okay.
Society says an independent woman does for herself. She got her own everything. She don't need nobody else. She's independent. A godly woman can never, ever, 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 ever be independent. A
She can
godly
never be
man
independent. I get what
never.
you're saying.
A
Yes.
godly man cannot be ever, 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 ever be independent. There is no such thing with God as your head. It's virtually impossible for you to be independent anything if God is your head. And you will know that. And anybody that calls you independent, you'll instantly correct them and says, "No, I'm not. I am fully dependent on God."
Okay, so you're not talking about the aspect of taking care of yourself and
No.
okay. I just
No.
wanted to make
And
sure.
that's where
That's
Thank
I
not
you.
had it
independent.
confused too,
That's not
Erica.
independence. That's not independence. That's selfishness. You know how to be selfish.
Ooh.
There are tons of people that know how to be selfish. I got my own thing. And my 5-year-old knows how to be. My 7-year-old knows how to be selfish. He's real good at my own thing and my own and my own. We learned that at 2 years old. So for you to say that your flex is your independent, okay, you're good at being 2 years old. Good for you. All right, you're an
Ouch.
amazing 2-year-old. Perfect. Now let's see you be dependent on God for everything, like an adult should be.
So, sir, you're saying that it. Well, never mind. I done lost my thought. I'm sorry. Ooh.
You lost your mind.
I guess so.
What?
So, but here's the thing, okay? And this is the reason I wanted to have this panel because there's a lot of things out there that are completely, and again, as much as, and I put this out there, you don't have to listen to anything I've said. Not a word. I don't expect anybody to take my word as gold. You don't have to. No one has to. I'm simply airing out things that I have seen over time, shown to me by the head honcho himself, um, of how things operate. And it's been proven out in myriads of situations, almost 98% in almost every marriage, that when you put yourself above the other person and take God out of it, things go bad. It's just that simple. When you put yourself ahead of God, things go bad. When you put God ahead of yourself, things go fine. It's math. It's
Amen.
It's dead on every time, 100%. I don't care what
I
anybody
agree.
tells me. It never failed. Not in a single marriage has that ever failed to be the case where you put God before, everything goes fine.
That's
The
right.
instant it goes wrong, you're being selfish. Check yourself first before you check your partner. But the more we have conversations about the discrepancies that are true, what is wrong, and we have two married, one single on the screen, when you start to weigh things against yourself and not against God, you're going to always have problems. And society wants you to weigh everything against yourself. Society wants you to weigh everything about what you can accomplish. It wants to base it on your accomplishments, your goals. You. God wants it all about him. And until you square that circle, you're not going to make any progress. So for people who disagree with me, you have that right. Continue in your little insanity circle and keep doing the same thing over and over and getting the same result and can think that you're not crazy. Feel free. All I know is from my life experience, when you put the man first, not in terms of me, male, God, first, everything else falls where it's supposed to be. If women put God first, they'll follow the man. If man put God first, the woman will follow. And
Amen.
the kids will see both of you doing that and be like, all right, I'll do that too. That's the secret. It's not rocket science. But we
You're
want to make
right.
it rocket science. We
You're
want to make
right.
it rocket.
So I got a
Do,
controversial question, Marlon.
mhm.
Do I know it's outside of teachings, but in necessary situations, and I've had this posed to me, in debates of marriage or not,
Mhm.
I'm so sorry. Hold on 1 second. Is sorry about that. Had a child step in. Is there a situation to where it's not ungodly for a woman to be the leader of her household if in a forced situation?
What do you mean? What do you mean head?
Head as in provider, doer, giver, leader of God.
No, that's not the order of God though.
Amen.
I know.
That's not even biblical. That's godly. That's not the order that God set in a marriage.
Well, I know that it's not the order that he set, but a
Mhm.
lot of women, I think, and just, you know, in search of, figuring out my best route. I've talked to a lot of women who
Mhm.
have been forced into a situation by, either, I hate to say it, inept men or a situation of being that leader themselves.
Well, they're still not following the order either way. No one in the marriage at that point is following the order.
Right.
Let's just put it like this.
Well, that's single
Because
ladies too.
yeah, if you're not like again, and this is I know there are lots of caveats that people put in front of a situation to try and justify a result. And that's normal. People do that to try and make it thing justified. An inept man is that's subjective. Okay, that's very subjective. Um, some women might find an inept man one that's trying to dominate. An inept man, some people might say he's not doing this, he's not doing that, and that's inept, and they want to take the reins from him. If neither the man nor the woman is following God, you'll run into problems. Man
Right.
follows God, woman follows man because woman follows God, hence she'll follow man, and children will follow parents. When we deviate from that system, you'll have the questions you just posed and you'll have the problems that you just put forward. Many
Well, what is
women
your suggestion for these single fathers and mothers then?
find God.
Yep.
It's the only solution. It's not communication. It's not trying to talk to each other better. It's not moving into it's finding God. If you don't find him, because he's the only thing that he's the glue. He's the glue. If he ain't in the relationship, I don't care how good you guys are to each other, problems.
Yeah.
Period.
It goes back to what I said earlier, and that's why you have to just allow God to initiate up front. Because when you don't, 5 doggone years from now, 15 doggone years from now, you find yourself in the place of the man, and God is like, okay, well, this is happening to you because I never was even in it. So
Mhm.
you have to just and I understand that if you're in a marriage, I'm not saying yours is like that, but if you're in a marriage, I mean, You just stuck. My advice, if he ain't in it, then you ain't got obligated to stay in it, to be
Right.
honest with you.
So let
Well,
me
it's
address
not
you.
even me speaking of just marriages alone.
Right.
I'm looking at society as a whole where, say, marriages didn't work or if they've lost a partner. Marlon, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that, these single mothers out there, they can't be the leaders of their homes because the male isn't there that is
No, no, no,
leading
no, no,
them
no,
to
no,
God.
no, 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 no. If you're in a marriage, the man is the head. If you're on your own, God is the head, male or female. If you're on your own, God is the head. If you're
Okay.
married, God is the head. Then man is the head of the wife, and the wife follows the man.
Okay. I got you. That's
When
what I
you're
was
single, though,
trying to
when you're
get
single,
clarification.
yeah, like when you're single, apparently this Rhonda woman is a single woman who doesn't know how to understand English. So I'll clarify it for you. Yes, you're in a mental insanity ward. It's not being rude. You just can't handle factual truth. That's okay. You can't handle truth. Just say that. Say you don't like God and you want to do things your own way, which is insanity to me. Just understand it. You are insane if you think you can handle life on your own without God. That is insanity. And you will stay in that circle as long as you ignore God. If God is not your head, you can be independent all you want. Life will suck for you. Period. If you are a single woman, there is no independence about you because God is who you are dependent on. Thinking outside of that is insanity. Plain and simple. But if you want to remain insane, feel free because you're free to do that. And if you consider that insulting, it means you're twice as insane. I don't have to kowtow to you and twist truth because you can't handle it. Maybe your dad might have done that because he wasn't a man, and maybe your mother did that because she wasn't a woman. I'm not that person. We're trying to fix society's problems. If you want to stay in society's problems, stay. I'm trying to help other women make it out of that insanity circle. I'm trying to help men make it out of that insanity circle. Society wants to push on you that you, as a male or female, don't need God. You can be independent without Him. And then when all the stuff hits the fan, you want to complain how life is hard and you want to complain. So complain all you want. Stay in your mental ward. Strap yourself up with a nice vest and enjoy your rubber room. But when it comes to reality, it's either God or insanity. Plain and simple. It's either God or insanity. You can't run this gauntlet of life thinking you can handle everything without God. Because you know what you're going to end up turning around doing? Why is life so hard? And then you're going to say, why does God let this happen? Don't bring God back into it now. You didn't want Him before. Remember, you said you could do it. You're independent. You don't need God to fix nothing. Right? So independent, make it independent on your own. Have fun with that. I am here to tell women who want to find God and a good relationship. I'm here to tell men who want to find God and find a good relationship how to do it. You can't have a proper marriage without God as the head. You can't have a proper single life without God as your head. You're going to end up either being promiscuous or angry. I'm not pulling punches with people. I've been doing that my whole life and I'm done doing that. If you can be hurt all you want, you can be angry all you want, and I just won't care. I'm raising 4 boys and a daughter. And I have to be very mindful of the crap that society tells them that is normal. And the crap that society tells them is normal is pick a girl, sleep with her, dip. Pick a girl, sleep with her, dip. It tells my daughter, shake your behind, attract men with your behind, and show your tits. That's what they tell them, my daughter. That's what they're telling my daughter.
Yes.
And that's how you get a man. Right? You want me to, that's independence. That's insanity. And I will be damned if I put my children in front of that and be quiet. I won't. And I'm sure Amber's
No.
probably feeling that you would not put your daughter or your son in front of that nonsense.
No.
You put them in front of God and let
Oh,
God carry them where they need to go.
so I actually do not believe in God.
I get that. I knew that before you came on here.
But I do, however, I feel like people have to believe in something. So, in my husband and I, we believe in what is mother and father nature.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that in a sense, people say that, well, that's your God. I guess you can look at it that way. But I feel like what people have to realize is like, if you don't believe in God per se, but you believe in something, whether you believe in nature, you have that kind of higher being that you believe in, you can have a lot of the same stances and viewpoints as somebody that does believe in God. You know,
It's all God or nothing.
there's a lot of things that have been said that I 100% agree with. It's just my God is different in that sense. And I think people in the comments get a little taken back when you talk about, you know, God in one sense, and they don't realize that just because you don't believe in that same God, it's not an attack on you. Like, I don't feel like I've been attacked at all with any of the God talk because there's a lot of stances and a lot of stuff that I agree with. I just know in my head, my God is different. My God is Mother Nature.
And
Yeah.
for some, like I said, this is not a matter of me. And like I said it, I think 3 times. I don't require people to agree or follow anything I say. I don't require that because
Right.
my God doesn't require it either. He would like it, but he doesn't require it. So when I mention God or you mention Mother Nature or Father Nature, the difference between the two is real or not real. And the
Mm.
only way that one can figure that out is the knowledge of each. Okay? So in my life, I have fully 100% met God and had my conversations with him and interacted with him on a level that has proven me that he exists 100% for me. And I try to tell people what I've experienced and how they can experience. I don't tell them they have to. But for the thing that he created, which which is marriage, you either follow his blueprint or you don't. You might
Amen.
attribute it to Mother Nature, but it's still his blueprint. You might attribute it to any other gods out there, but it's still his blueprint. That's up to you to believe or not. I'm not saying, Amber, I'm not attacking. I'm saying that you have to believe. I get what you mean. I fully get what you mean. In either case, this life is not meant for people to walk in and of their own strength. And we get that sorely confused a lot of the time. Men and women are meant to not just coexist, but to fuse. In a marriage, the reason why you said the two shall become one flesh, that's a fusing. So whatever you were before, whatever your mother and father was, you leave and you're one. Which means when you try to rip that apart, it should hurt. Right? It should wound you when you divorce. It should wound you almost mortally. But we become a people of paper. And it's just like we take 2 pieces of paper, and at any point you could pull the papers apart. That's marriage now. Just 2 pieces of paper. They never mesh, just 2 pieces of paper. And we take the whole one flesh thing out of the equation. And we run into problems all the time. Then we complain that marriage is hard. Marriage is not hard. Marriage is difficult for you because it might be something that you're missing, and that's the one linchpin that you both should be aiming for.
But as a single woman wanting to know how can it mesh if it's not meant to be?
That's why you follow God first.
Right. I've met men and we wanted to get married, but it didn't happen. I mean, we weren't meant to be together. So it's, sometimes it's not meant to be. And personally, I feel sorry for people who are married and you didn't even consult God. You just wanted to be married, and then you wondering why you catching all kinds of hell. Well, that's the reason why. You're trying to build, you're trying to build something from ashes. You're trying to build a foundation off of quicksand when you don't have God involved, when you didn't ask God. So if he ain't in it, he don't care if you get divorced because he never put it together. That's how I feel.
So for your viewpoint, Amber, the the fact that you have something outside of yourself controlling the rights and wrongs of your movement is exactly, you're right, that there's a type, just like my belief in God and your belief in Mother Nature. It's the same thing. There's something outside of you maintaining the structure of what you do, right? Um, whether that be the same God or not, the idea, I get exactly what you're saying, that there is something outside that dictates that. Men and women today, though, they don't realize that they're doing the exact same thing, and it's called society. They have a God. They don't realize it's the devil or society, but they have a God. And they take all their cues from that, and then when things go to ruin, they get mad. But it tells you right away that it's ruin. Just listen to it logically, and you can tell it is never going to work as a partnership. These kind of discussions, I would love to have another. I want to try and make this an every week thing. But the next panel I put together, I think I want it to be all male. And I want to hear the male perspective of
That
this.
sounds great.
So maybe you
Yes.
guys can encourage your husbands to come.
My husband would not. No.
My husband would
Like, what
never.
oh, before you ask me that, what do you want? Like, oh no.
He don't have to show his face. He could just talk.
No.
Tell him you're talking to a guy. It's a guy. It's not like he's coming to talk to. It's just guy talk.
I
It's
can
like
tell you
having
my husband
cigars.
wouldn't.
Yeah, my husband would
Never.
tell me I'm crazy and go cook dinner. That's what he would tell me.
It's just like coming. It's just like meeting at the bar with the boys. You know what I'm saying? Just come have a conversation.
I would love to have you have a panel of, say, 2 single men versus 2 married men, so
That's
we
easy
can
enough to
get
put
their
together.
perspective.
I think that's easy enough to put together.
Because
And
If
I think
anybody in the
this panel evened out really well,
yeah
with views
yeah.
from both sides.
If, however, people in the audience, you guys do know, hear me out. If you do know of single men or married men, even if it's your husbands, that you want to have be on next weekend, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern, have them call me, please. Have them call me, or send me an email, or my email is in my bio on YouTube, or add me on Facebook and inbox me, because we probably need to have a conversation on the other side to see exact. And I think this will be funny though if it's true. I think you'll see a lot of the things I talked about how men function in their brain will come to bearing. That they just, if you're gonna bring me a problem, let me fix it, kind of thing.
it
So
sounds great,
I
Marlon.
think it would be a good idea if you guys do have suggestions of people, please let me know, because I'd really like to have that conversation with them. But I want to thank you, Amber, Karma, and Tisha, if you're out just listening, and Erica for showing up. I have to get on Shipper for not showing up because she was like, "I sent you an email." And she sent me an email, and then she wouldn't show up to the show. I'm gonna chew her out for that.
Shame,
But I
shame.
think who showed up needed to show up, and were supposed to show up, and it turned out really good. I think this one's gonna get a lot of traction for a good purpose, and I would like to see that happen. So if you guys do, please share it, share. And we'll hopefully be back next weekend with a male version of the panel. We'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, thank you again, ladies, for being on. It was a really good discussion. I really appreciated it. And for those in the audience, please remember what I always tell you: wisdom calls to you from the street. Please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Thank you.
Dreams, for if dreams die, rely on your